Art is the eternal echo of fleeting movement. What does it mean to capture movement? Not an image, not a symbol, but the raw pulse of life itself, the instant when muscles coil, when breath suspends, when time hesitates. 2.5 millennia ago, one man attempted this impossible task. Myron of Eleutherae, a Greek sculptor of the 5th century BCE, carved motion into eternity. His works, though mostly lost, transformed art forever. But here's the mystery. Do we truly know what Myron created, or are we admiring distorted echoes of his genius? To answer, we must journey into a world where athletes were heroes, animals were sacred, and bronze itself was the medium of immortality. Myron was born in Eleutherae, a frontier town between Attica and Boeotia. Not quite Athenian, not quite foreign. Living on the edge of two cultures gave him perspective. He saw both the refined elegance of Athens and the raw vitality of the countryside. He trained under Agelaus of Argos, the same teacher who shaped Phidias and Polykleitos. Imagine that workshop. 3 young men learning to shape bronze, each destined to redefine Greek art in different ways. Phidias would sculpt the gods. Polykleitos would perfect proportion. Myron would capture the heartbeat of life itself. But why motion? Why not serenity, like the others? The 5th century BCE was the golden age of Athens. Democracy was flourishing, theater was thriving, and philosophy was emerging. Art was not just decoration, it was identity, propaganda, even politics. After the Persian Wars, Athens sought to project itself as the leader of Greece. Temples rose, statues filled public spaces. Art became the voice of civic pride. In this atmosphere, Myron thrived. His statues were not luxuries, they were statements. Every athlete, every god, every animal he sculpted was a declaration of Athenian vitality. And nowhere was this more visible than in his athletes. The Greece of Myron's youth was obsessed with the Olympic Games and the Pan-Hellenic festivals. Athletes were civic heroes. Victories were political capital. To sculpt them was to sculpt civic glory. Yet before Myron, statues of athletes looked stiff, archaic, lifeless. They celebrated presence, not movement. Myron shattered that mold. He captured not the man standing still, but the man in motion, straining, twisting, alive. And this pursuit of motion would produce one of the most iconic works of antiquity. The Discobolus, or Discus Thrower, became Myron's signature. The athlete bends, torso twisted, one arm extended, the discus poised. Muscles ripple in perfect rhythm. The body leans into the throw, but the discus will never fly. Here lies the paradox. Myron froze the unfreezable. His art is a balance of stillness and movement, where time is both halted and eternal. Roman copies multiplied centuries later, spreading his vision across the empire. Even today, the Discobolus is an image of perfection, but it's also a haunting reminder of what we've lost. Because few realize that what we see today may not truly be Myron. Myron's originals were cast in bronze, the lifeblood of classical sculpture. Bronze allowed bold poses, twisting bodies, daring motion, impossible in marble. But bronze was also vulnerable. Wars demanded weapons. Statues were melted down and recycled into shields or coins. The very material that made his genius possible ensured its disappearance. Today, nearly all we know of Myron comes from Roman marble copies, translations in stone of what was once alive in metal. So, the question remains, are we admiring Myron's art, or Rome's imagination of Myron? Among Myron's most famous works was not human, but animal. A bronze cow placed on the Athenian Acropolis. Poets wrote about it. Travelers swore they could hear it lowing. It was said to be so lifelike that herds gathered around it. Why a cow? Because Myron understood something profound, that beauty was not reserved for gods and athletes. By sculpting a humble animal, he declared that nature itself deserved immortality. And this pursuit of realism extended beyond animals. Myron also sculpted mythological scenes. His group of Athena and Marsyas showed the satyr recoiling after daring to pick up the goddess's flute. The scene is alive with tension. Athena stern, Marsyas caught between temptation and fear. What set Myron apart was not the story, but the dynamism. Myth was no longer frozen in symbolic gestures. It was enacted in motion, in hesitation, in decision. Here, Myron whispered, "Life is not static. It is movement, choice, struggle." Ancient critics loved him. Pliny the Elder wrote that Myron surpassed all others in lifelike truth. He praised his mastery of anatomy, his precision in muscles under strain. Yet Pliny also remarked that Myron's faces lacked depth. His bodies were alive, but his souls less so. In other words, Myron gave us breath and muscle, but not yet inner drama. That would come with later masters, and yet, this very focus on the body paved the way for an entirely new vision of art. When the Romans conquered Greece, they copied Greek art obsessively. Myron's Discobolus became a favorite. Marble versions spread through villas, baths, and gardens. But the Romans rarely copied faithfully. They sometimes altered proportions, even changed faces to resemble Roman patrons. What survives today is as much Roman invention as Greek legacy. So, do we know Myron? Or only a Roman lens through which we glimpse him? And this problem is not unique. Much of Greek art reaches us filtered through Rome. Despite the distortions, Myron's impact is undeniable. Renaissance artists studied Roman copies to rediscover motion. The Discobolus reappeared as a model of balance and power. In the modern Olympic Games, Myron's Discus Thrower became an icon once more, a symbol of timeless athleticism. Even in the 20th century, authoritarian regimes appropriated the image for propaganda. A statue of motion, ironically frozen in the service of ideology. In the end, Myron's discus never leaves his hand. His cow never moves. His satyr never dares. And yet, this is his triumph. He captured the instant before action, the tension that defines life. Because life is lived not only in results, but in the heartbeat before them. So I ask you, if you could preserve one moment forever, suspended like Myron's discus, which would you choose? And before you answer, remember, only 1% of those who watch ever subscribe. Be the exception. Help us keep history alive.